Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. So today I am going to be giving you a fabric review and a pattern review. So the fabric review is going to be of this lovely crystal chrysanthemum viscose fabric by Minerva. So this fabric was sponsored to me by Minerva, and I'm going to give you my full fabric review, and I'm going to give you a pattern review of the pattern that I use with this lovely fabric. So the pattern that I use for this fabric is a pattern that I made before, and I have a full pattern review of that particular pattern on the channel. So the pattern that I use is the Simplicity S9041. And so this is a beautiful faux wrap dress. So it's a wrap bodice, and then you also have a skirt that's attached to the wrap bodice. You have different sleeve options and all of that good stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the features of the pattern, and then later on I'll give my full review of the fabric. So let's first start with the pattern. So for this pattern, you have three different variations that you can sew. So you have different skirt lengths, and then you also have sleeve options. So let's start with the sleeve options. So the sleeve options, you have a flutter sleeve that you can make or a long sleeve, and there's also a no sleeve option as well. So with my first make, I made the long sleeve option, and I'll share with you here what that looks like. It was made with a black and lemon rayon fabric from Fabric Mart, and that was for a Fabric Mart post that I did. So I do have like I said, a video review on YouTube, and I also have a review on my website on the crumpetstndsewing.com website. You can find my blog link in the description box below if you want to look at the blog as well. So that fabric I did with that fabric, I did the long sleeve variation and also a long maxi length skirt as well. So with this variation, I did the flutter sleeve, which I absolutely love. And I'll tell you the changes that I made to the sleeves so that I can get it to be, better for me and my liking. Now for the skirt, like I said, you have different skirt lengths. So you could do a maxi length, a midi length, or you could do like this. You could do, I think, above the knee. I think that's view C. I think is above the knee. So for the lemon print variation, like I said, I did a maxi length, and for this one, I decided to do something like in between a maxi and a midi length. And so that's what I did for this dress here. Now, this dress features a skirt that is cut on the bias. So it's cut out twice. So your front skirt and your back skirt, both of those skirt pieces are cut out twice. However, for my lemon print variation as well as this variation, I made some slight changes and I cut my pattern on fold. Now, I'll tell you the reason why I did that here in a moment, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you all the patterns that are featured, the pattern pieces that are featured with this pattern. So you get a tie belt that you can make. You have the front bodice, the back bodice, you have the skirt front, the skirt back, and then you have your facing pieces. So you have a collar band here, and you're going to cut that collar band out twice because you're going to do the upper collar and the under collar. Or the collar band. So it's the upper collar band and the under collar band. And so you have those pieces as well. And then you have, I don't know if I said this, you have your sleeve. So you don't have a lot of pattern pieces that you're working with. And so it's not very complicated to put this together. I would definitely say this is for your advanced beginners to intermediate sewers. Beginners, you could probably make this if you are ambitious and if you've made a dress pattern before. There are some techniques that you will be using that you're probably not familiar with if you're a beginner, and that is attaching the collar band. That, for someone who is an advanced beginner or intermediate sewer, isn't really challenging, but for someone who is a beginner, that might be challenging if it is a foreign concept to you of attaching a neckband to the neckline of your garment. And so I would say that's basically the only really challenging part for beginners. And you do have, for your closure, an elastic that is in the waistline. So again, it's not like a lot. It's not very challenging, but there are a few more pieces than beginners might want to sew. But again, you probably can sew this if you are a beginner. So I would definitely encourage you to watch my original video. Go back and reference that video because I talk a little bit more in detail about changes that I had made to that garment and what I needed to do to get the garment to fit me back then. And I made that about a year and a half ago, I think. And so my body has changed just slightly, not much, but just slightly. So, and that for the lemon print, I actually made like a size 18. And even in that video, I stated that I needed to go down to the size 16 because I felt that it was a little bit too big. And so this time I did do the size 16. And then I kept all my original standard adjustments with the forward shoulder adjustment and things of that nature. Next time, I think I would actually raise the waistline as well. The waistline was a little bit low. I raised it just a little bit, just slightly, but I raised it after I cut out my pattern pieces. And because I raised it after I cut out my pattern pieces, obviously I was taking a little bit from the bodice, front and back, and also from the skirt waistline, I was raising that in. And so that does change the nature of the way that the pattern will drape on you. And so ideally you want to make those changes before you cut your pattern pieces out. And so next time I would definitely make those changes to the flat pattern, and I would raise the waistline a little bit because it was very low on me. So I think I would have to raise it about somewhere between 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch next time. So I did raise it just a tad on this one. I think I raised it by 1/2 an inch on this one. I didn't want to go all the way to like 3/4 of an inch because I didn't want to take out too much from the bodice. So anyway, that's what I would do next time. So let's talk about reasons for why I place my skirt pattern pieces on fold. So as I mentioned in the earlier part of this video, and then also in my previous video, I placed my skirt pattern pieces, my front skirt and my back skirt on fold. And the reason why I did this is because it's really hard to get that belt pattern piece to lay next to your skirt pattern pieces if they're not on fold. Because if you're cutting out your skirt front and your skirt back twice, you're cutting them on the grain and you're cutting them to where the pattern pieces have to lay straight on the grain. And so it's not on the fold, it's straight on the grain. And so that kind of goes into your fabric a little bit on the edge where the selvage is. And so your pattern piece, your belt pattern piece won't fit next to your skirt pattern pieces, which means all that fabric that's on that side is basically a waste. You're wasting it basically. And so what I did is I, like I said, changed my pattern just a little bit. And I put my front and my back pattern pieces on fold so that I can lay my belt pattern pieces next to my skirt pattern pieces, and I can get that belt from the pattern from the fabric as well without wasting my fabric. So that might be something that you want to do. If not, if you want to have your skirt cut out twice and you don't mind wasting that fabric that's on the side, then you will need some extra fabric to accommodate for that. The pattern calls for like, I think it's something like 4 or 5 yards of fabric. But that's because of that belt pattern piece. Like if you put your pattern pieces on fold, like I use 3 yards of fabric. I use 3 yards of fabric for this, and I use 3 yards of fabric for the lemon print as well. And so if you are wanting to save on fabric, I would put your front and your back pattern pieces on fold, your skirt pattern pieces on fold. So that's what I did for that. Let's talk a little bit about the fabric. So as I mentioned before, the title of this fabric is Crystal Chrysanthemum Viscose fabric. So that's what the title is. If you want to go to the Minerva site and type it in, it's basically a Minerva exclusive Crystal Chrysanthemums Viscose challis fabric. And it comes on a, let's see here, a 59-inch wide fabric. It's 100% viscose, non-scratch fabric. And you have, it's saying that it's an abstract flower printed design, but you have like these little dots. I guess they are abstract dots, and they form like this chrysanthem flower, which is really, really cool. And so you have like with each color, so the colors on here are red, pink, blue, green. You have some magenta colors, like dark pink tones, those types of tones in the fabric. And with each color, it forms like this beautiful chrysanthem shape, which is really fun. I really do like it. And I think it's a fun little piece. It sewed up really well. I washed it in the wash. I was supposed to put it on delicate because I usually put all of my viscose challis type fabrics on delicate, but I made a mistake and I put it on, I think I put it on cotton or something like that, and it still held up really well. So I really like it. The color is still true to color. It pressed really well. Oh, and when it came out of the dryer, I didn't really need to press it. The only reason why I pressed it is because I wanted to make sure when I was cutting out my neckband pieces that, because with viscose sometimes you can get some slippage, and I didn't want to, I wanted my neckband pieces to be accurate. And so usually I will spray some starch on my fabric and press it so that it makes it so that the fabric is a little bit more stiff. So when I'm cutting it, you don't have as much shifting. And that's one of the reasons why I pressed it. But when you wash this garment, you do not really need to press it. It's almost like it's wrinkle free. I love it. I absolutely love it. And like I said, the color retention is still there. It's just a beautiful fabric. It's really nice to sew with. The raw edges on the inside of my garment were serged with my serger, and it turned out really beautifully. So I'm really, really happy with this piece, and I love it, love it, love it, love it. So as I stated before, I did the bell sleeves. Now the sleeves for this pattern, this was my first time doing the bell flutter type sleeve, and it is a very, very wide pattern, very wide. So you will not be able to do this with a 45-inch wide fabric or anything like that. You will need a wider fabric, some maybe around 55. It is a very wide fabric. Now what you can do, which is something that I have done, and not because I was trying to save fabric or anything like that, but just because I didn't really like how much volume was in the sleeve, is I brought the width of the sleeve in by an inch. By, I think it was like 1.5 inches, because it was just like really, really big. And even you can still see that it's quite big. It's a big sleeve. It's pretty big there. So you have like a lot of room there. Obviously, I didn't have to worry about doing a bicep adjustment or anything like that because it is a really wide sleeve. So I really do like the way that the sleeve turned out, because I, took some of that width out of the sleeve, and it's really easy. All you do is slash the pattern and bring the width in a little bit. Just make sure that you keep your original arm side shape, because you don't want to mess up the arm size shape. But you can definitely bring in the width at the bottom a little bit so that you don't have so much volume in the sleeve. So that's basically what I did, because I didn't want to have the sleeve be too big. The other thing that I did, now the pattern, I believe the pattern calls for on the skirt 1.25 inch hem. I'm not for sure. It's either 5/8 of an inch or 1.25. I usually don't look at the directions for hems, I'm going to be honest, because I usually just do my own thing when it comes to hems, unless I want to get the same look that is showcased on the pattern. Now in this case, you can't really see what the model is showcasing for the hem, so I just went ahead and did my own thing. Now for the skirt, let's see if I can show you here. For the skirt, I did bias binding here. So I just put bias binding on the edge of the skirt. And then I did the same thing for my sleeve as well. I just put bias binding on it, and I turned the bias binding on the inside there. I don't know if you can see it, but I put bias binding on it and flipped it on the inside. Just because I was just feeling, I was just feeling lazy that day. And so I just decided I'm just gonna use bias binding. And so that's what I did for the, for the sleeves. And another reason why I like using bias binding on flutter sleeves is because sometimes it's really hard to get those curves to fold over on itself, especially if you're doing like a double hem, a double rolled hem or something like that. It's really hard to get the curve to kind of lay flat. And so if you're having trouble, just use bias binding. Bias binding is so much easier to work with because once you put the bias binding on the raw edge of the sleeve, at the end of the sleeve, you can clip those the ends, and it'll relax, and then you can turn that bias binding inward, and you can sew it a little bit more with ease without having to worry about having bumps and the fabric shifting and stuff like that as you sew. And so that's one of the reasons why I put the bias binding on the edge of the sleeve. So I just use regular purchase bias binding. I didn't have enough to do to make bias binding. Next time, if I have enough to make bias binding, I would really like to just make my own bias binding. But that's what I did for that. For the neckline, with these types of garments, like you're always going to have some type of issues with like gaping, not gaping, but sometimes you'll have issues with like the this part, the V part coming open, especially if you're big busted like myself. And so I just put I don't know, I put snaps. I put snaps on here. I don't think you can see it here. Maybe I'll take the garment off and show you. But I put snaps. I put 3 snaps going down. And then also I have my microphone on too, so it's kind of hard to show you. But I put snaps, 3 snaps going down the garment, and so it helps to keep it closed. That's something that you can definitely do. But anyway, I really love this make, and I am excited to get some wear out of it. If you haven't seen pictures going throughout this video already, I'll go ahead and put some here so you can see what my garment looks like, and even give you a little video here of me wearing it. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic. It's a fantastic sew. I love the pattern. I can't say enough about the pattern. Go ahead and watch my original review, and you can see the lemon version that I made last year. I definitely want to make another one. I just don't know what kind of fabric I want to use yet. So yeah, this is going to be one of my TNT patterns. I absolutely love it. So yeah, that is my review of this pattern, my second review of this pattern. If you like this review, please make sure you give it a big thumbs up. If you've sewn this pattern before, let me know in the comment section below what your experience was like, if you like the pattern. And if you haven't made this pattern yet, let me know if you are planning to make this pattern and what kind of fabric you will like to sew. All right, I thank you for tuning in to today's video. I can't wait to talk to you all later. I hope you all have a happy and blessed sewing week. And until next time, stay creative, my friends. Bye.